It's close enough for government work. Kind of makes a smiley face like that. You don't have to send me gifts or cards or anything like that. Welcome to Life on the Moose. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Let's put the deck boards in this outdoor kitchen today. Before we get going on the deck boards, I'm gonna take this piece of scrap 2x6 that I have right here, and it's all warped and wonky, so that's a perfect board to use for some blocking. I'm not gonna block every single joist. I just don't think there's a good reason for it. Nothing's gonna go anywhere once these boards are on top. They're sturdy 2x6 deck boards that I'm gonna use. So it's not gonna be folding or anything like that. So I'm just gonna take the joists that may be out of whack a little bit. Like this one here, I don't know if you can see, it kind of takes a right turn at the other side. So I'm just gonna put a few pieces of blocking in where I need it. Oh, I wanted to point one thing out about this joist. Here, I'll show you. Okay, that joist right there, I was eyeballing this morning and it was significantly lower than the rest of them. And that wasn't the one I cut the crown off of in a previous episode. It wasn't crowned in the wrong direction, but it really didn't have a crown. But compared to the other ones, it was about 1/4 of an inch lower. So what I did, I don't know if you can see that, I took the piece that I cut off of the one that was crowned too much, and I actually just tacked it on to the top of that. And by the time the deck boards are on there, you'll never know how bad that looked. I had a couple people comment that I wasn't using the right size nails in my hangers. As I've mentioned to a lot of you before, these projects, this one especially, I mean, this is really nothing but a glorified gazebo when you think about it. I don't even know if you can call it a building per se. Well, I mean, it's a structure for sure, but does a building have to have walls in order to be a building? I mean, if you put 4 posts in the ground and put a roof on top, is that a building? Yeah, I guess you could argue that it could be. But regardless, this is not being permitted. It does not have to be permitted. And these nails that I used, perhaps they didn't all meet code. By the time this is all said and done, I am worried about those nails this much. Not at all. I am positive, I can say this with utmost confidence, that everything will be okay. I also had someone ask, how come I put hangers on one side and not the other? I have a feeling perhaps that person just fast forwarded to a part and didn't see the rest of it. So I think the answer is obvious why I didn't use hangers on this side. Because they're not hanging. All right, well, we should probably think about getting to work. It's been 2 weeks since I've been here. Oh, I had a wisdom tooth pulled. I know, right? Told I was a unique individual for having 3 wisdom teeth this late in my life. I've never had any pulled, but I was having an issue with one of them, so they yanked it out a few days ago. You know, I'm on my way to full recovery, so, you know, you don't have to send me gifts or cards or anything like that. I'll be just fine. It's 9/20 and June 24th, by the way, in case you were wondering. Well, enough chit chat. I think we're all caught up on what we need to be caught up on. So let's cut some blocks out of this board, which is really wonky, but it's the perfect use for it. All right, let's get to work. Well, as they say in the government, it's close enough for government work. I think they say that. Well, I tell you what, it's close enough for an outdoor kitchen next to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Close enough for that, that's for sure. Okay, my first deck board is gonna go on. It's gonna go on this side first. So my first two boards will have to get notched so they fit nice and snug around this post. So I think my deck is about 11 feet 8 inches and my deck boards are 12 feet. So what I'm gonna do is cut off one end first just to square it off. I think I'll let it run long on that side and then just snap a line and cut everything off at the end when I'm finished. So for now, let's get this one notched and start laying deck boards down. Okay, off to an interesting start. Did you see what happened to my countersink? This end of it that goes into the drill, the barrel, I don't know what you call it, it sheared off of the shaft. I've never had that happen before. So that is completely shot. Unless you have a very small welder I can borrow. Crazy. So I wanted to point out two things. One are these deck boards and how they're going down. As you probably are aware, every board, well, I shouldn't say every board, depends on how it's cut, depends on the grain. Do you see this grain right here? Kind of makes a smiley face like that. You also see how this is starting to cup a little bit. My understanding is if you want them to cut perfectly, put them all like this. I'm not going to do that. I'm simply going to choose the nicest side of the board, and that's it. Not going to be in direct sunlight most of the time, not going to be wet most of the time. So I'm not concerned about the cupping of the board. I'm just going to put the nicest side up, and that's it. I'm going to put the screws about 3/4 of an inch from each edge. That'll prevent a lot of cupping, if you will. I'm not so concerned if it cups this direction. Ultimately, that's what you would want anyway, so water doesn't sit in that cup. Hopefully that's all crystal clear. The moral of the story is I'm not going to worry about it. Here's another thing I'm not going to worry about. This wood that I'm putting up is untreated Doug fir. That's all it is, Doug fir. I would pose that in this climate, in this location, Doug fir fares at least as good as cedar does on the coast. Obviously, it's a lot wetter on the coast. So you get that. It's a lot drier here. I think it also has something to do with altitude. And correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm an idiot. Okay, don't tell me if I'm an idiot. I'll get my feelings hurt. But I have a theory. My theory is since we're at 3,000 feet, the air pressure is less. Now, if the air pressure is less, you have less force pushing moisture into wood. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. Maybe that's one reason why things seem to last longer up here. Now this Doug fir, it might get wet. That's okay. It'll get wet, especially on the edges where it's not protected from the roof I'm going to put on. But it'll dry right away too. So I'm not concerned about it. In fact, this morning, I took some video of a glue lamb beam. So basically it's Doug fir glued together. That was the main ridge beam in the main cabin back at Red Moose Ranch. This chunk of wood has been sitting outside in the elements, rain, snow, freezing, 110-degree weather, all of it for 18 years. And this is what it looks like. 18 years, untreated wood. Even the edges are hard, which is pretty amazing to me. In 18 years, I have seen solid cedar decks rot on the coast. Here, as I mentioned, things just seem to last longer. This Doug fir is going to fare very well. I'm very confident about that. As you probably saw, I'm using my carpenter pencil the thin way to gap my deck boards. That's close enough to me. I'll check every once in a while. When I get about halfway through, I'll start measuring from the other side that's not finished, just to make sure we kind of line up. And if we need to make any adjustments, we'll make it incrementally along the way rather than wait for the last board and then have it a ½ an inch off. So I'm not going to laser anything or snap lines. I'm just going to use this when I need it. I'm going to eyeball things. It'll be just fine for a kitchen in the middle of nowhere. Well, let's put some more deck boards down. If you want to cut, I can go ahead and screw them down. Or would you rather screw them down and I can cut? Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. Well, I'm almost half finished, so not too bad. Did you happen to notice this first board? I was away for 2 weeks, and this board was sitting on top. Check out that sun damage from 2 weeks. Big difference. Oh, 1 o'clock. It's time for me to eat lunch. No, I don't have bear chili today. I think I might be out of bear chili. Today I'm eating like a king. I have steak. Well, almost like a king. It's not elk or deer. It's regular old beef steak, but it'll be delicious. So let's eat. So I took a measurement from that last board on the end to the end over here, all the way to this edge. We're a 1/4 of an inch off over on this side versus that end. So not too bad, a 1/4 of an inch off of 11 feet, 8 inches. Not too bad. I'm gonna blame it on you because I think you were responsible for that side. It wasn't me. Don't look at me. So I'll make up for that in very small increments, 1/8 inch or less, just a little hair each time, and I'll be good to go. Since I know someone will ask, what did I do to my arm? Well, I tell you, it's kind of a funny story. It's just a flesh wound. So to quote somebody famous, I'm not quite dead yet. If you know, you know. But that happened this morning. I was reaching in my pocket and I got scraped on a rivet that's coming apart on the inside of my tool belt. I need a new tool belt. I've had this tool belt for over 30 years, believe it or not. So I'll take some recommendations from you pros out there. I have a couple ideas, but nothing in stone yet. So drop me a note if you have a good suggestion. Well, let's cut some more boards and screw them down. Okay, 3 boards left. It just so happens that 3 boards encompasses 17 inches. And what do we have left? 17 inches. I didn't plan on that. I'm happy about that because if I lay these last 3 out correctly, I'm not gonna have to rip this last one. So that's a good thing. So what I'm gonna do is find 3 of my straightest boards over there, and then I'll just space them out equally, no matter what it is, even if it's a little shy. I don't care. It's just a kitchen next to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. It'll be just fine. So let's put those 3 on and then trim my edge over there. And that'll be it. Deck boards are on. The floor's done. Check it out. I'm missing about 20 screws in the field here. I ran out of 3-inch screws. Actually, I ran out of 3-inch screws this morning, and I was using 3 1/8-inch screws. All I have left is 4-inch screws. That's too much. I'm not going to waste those on this. So I'm going to go get some 3-inch screws in the morning, probably finish this up. And I'm going to let this sit in the sun for a day or two, really let it dry out. Some of those lower 2x6s were a little damp yet, heavy. So I just want to make sure they're nice and dry before I stain this. Well, thank you for watching Life on the Moose. I really appreciate it. Thank you for liking and subscribing and referring each and every one of your 1,000 friends. I really appreciate that. Well, we're going to keep working our way up next episode. Maybe put some walls in. I don't know exactly where. My wife and I had an idea of where we wanted the walls. And at the last minute, I might be changing my mind. I'm not sure. The one thing I do know, this side will be open. Then I'm going to have some half walls. And then for wind protection, I think I'm going to have one solid wall. I just don't know 100% which one. So tune in next week and find out. Well, until then, take care of yourself and those around you and stay out of trouble. I'll see you next week.